Hello, Sonnet here. Welcome back. I'm so excited to see you. How is your October going so far? Thank you so much for being here. If you're new here, hi, my name is Sonnet. We talk about books and we also talk about crochet and artwork and all things crafty and creative. So if you like stuff like that, maybe stick around. In today's video, we're going to be talking about all of the books that I have read in September. Typically, I put together a monthly TBR as well as everything I crocheted in the month, but today we are keeping those separate because all of my crocheted goodies, and there were a lot in September, are packed away for my craft fair for this weekend. So we're just going to be talking about books. So if you were looking for the crochet content, that's coming soon, but today we're just going to be talking about books. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it. I read 13 books in September, how spooky, and it was a great month. I think the lowest rating I had in September was a 3-star, so yeah, I'm all about it. The very first book that I read in September was The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Now, this was on my August TBR, and I didn't get a chance to finish it in August. I started it in August, but I didn't finish it until the beginning of September, so here we are. My goodness, I loved this book. I did give this one 5 stars. This book is amazing. This is about Amina Al-Sirafi. She was a pirate, however, she has retired and is now just living a nice quiet life with her daughter and her mother. However, of course, someone comes a-knocking and they offer her an adventure that she just can't refuse. So she gets all of her gang of pirates back together and then they go on a big adventure and it's wild. It's crazy. There was so much more adventure in this than I thought there was going to be. I don't know why. I didn't think it was going to be very adventurous, but I didn't, and here we are. It's amazing. It's pirates and demons and supernatural artifacts and bad guys trying to get the artifacts to rule the world. Very Indiana Jones-esque. And it was just so gorgeous. I loved Amina. I think she is so strong and powerful, and I think it is just fantastic. And everything with Jamal at the end, I was clapping. I was all for it. This is the first book, I believe, in a series. So once the next one comes out where we get to go on another adventure with Amina, I am all for it. I will be there, ready for the adventure. But yeah, definitely check this out if you are looking for something gorgeous and just a giant adventure. And it's so good. The next book I read is The Secrets of Hartwood Hall by Kodi Lumsden. This is a book that I saw at my library and the cover was intriguing, the synopsis was intriguing, but I was like, whatever. I'm not gonna get it right now. And then when I wanted to get it, it was not available. So I put it on hold and I waited for a while and then it came up to be available and I said, let's do it. We're diving into The Secrets of Hartwood Hall. Now, this is a debut and it is a Victorian Gothic mystery. It takes place in Victorian London and it has all the atmosphere that you expect with a cover like this one. So it's a dark manor. There is creaky hallways and spooky spooks, and the staff in the manor is very tight-lipped about what's going on, and it gears up to be a really interesting ghost story. And then it kind of twists and turns a little bit and I wasn't expecting it, but I'm so happy it did. And I loved this book. I gave this one 4 stars. It was moving. I didn't know much about it, so I didn't check the trigger warnings. If you are sensitive like I am, you might want to check the trigger warnings. It wasn't anything that I couldn't handle, and believe me, I'm very sensitive when it comes to things. So, but just to be safe, check the trigger warnings. It kind of went down a path I was not expecting, but I'm so glad it did. It has a beautiful message, and I was so entranced with this whole story. This is the story of Margaret. She is a recent widow, and she goes to work at Hartwood Hall to be the governess, basically, of a young boy named Louis. Her and him, they form a bond, but then as she is staying there at the manor, or at the hall, she learns that there is something kind of dark and different, and there's secrets. Hartwood Hall has secrets. So again, this book is so atmospheric. If you are looking for that kind of spooky, haunted house, Victorian manor type of feel, definitely check this one out. The next book is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. Now, I gave this one 3 stars. This was my least favorite book of the month, and it's a shame because I had been really looking forward to reading some T. Kingfisher because I hear amazing things. This is the story of 14-year-old Mona. She is a wizard. She works in her aunt's bakery, and then something happens and all craziness breaks loose, basically. She's on the run. There's wizards trying to find her. The queen is involved. It's a lot. Now, I started reading this book in July and I just finished it in September. This was the book that I was reading on my Kindle before bed, and I couldn't get more than a couple pages in without falling asleep. The first half of this book I thought was very kind of boring. I just couldn't get into the story. But once I got to the middle of it, things started picking up, and that last act, like I said, all craziness breaks loose, and I was for it. I liked that part of the book a lot. That's why it gets my rating of 3 stars. The last third of the book was really good. And I think the magic in this book is fantastic. So Mona is a wizard, and she controls like dough and bread and things from a bakery. It is so cool. She has little gingerbread characters that are sentient and follow her around. She has a sourdough starter named Bob, who's actually pretty vicious, but yet it's way cool. It's really cool. It's really cool. And so in the last act of this book, all of these like sentient bakery things that she magics alive really make the story way fun for me. I don't know. I loved the last part of the book. The beginning, not so much. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I will be reading more T. Kingfisher in the future. The next book I read is a children's graphic novel called The Flower Garden. This is by Renée Kurilla, I'm not sure, but this is absolutely adorable. This is the story of 2 friends, and one afternoon they plant some flowers in the backyard, and then they grow, and they have to learn about friendship, basically. Oh my goodness. So this graphic novel, although super short and sweet and simple, I loved it. I gave it 4 stars because I think the artwork is absolutely gorgeous, and it inspired me to actually get out my gouache, get out my pencils, and just do artwork for myself, which is a big thing because a lot of times I'm just so busy with crocheting and reading, my artwork gets pushed to the side. But yeah, this one inspired me to be artistic, so I liked it a lot. I thought it was so cute, and yes, amazing. Next up, another graphic novel. This one is Kodi. This is a graphic novel by Cullum, and this came out around 2020, I believe, during the pandemic, because I remember reading it when it first came out, and this was my second time reading it. I picked it up again from the library because I saw it and I remember really liking it. But again, let's talk about the artwork. Oh my goodness, Cullum, this artwork is fantastic. Oh, just look. Look at that watercolor. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. This is the story of Katya. She is a young girl and she lives with her grandmother, and they're out in Alaska, and she doesn't like to get out and do things. She just stays in her room. I believe she draws comics. And one day her grandmother is like, you got to get out. Here's some money. Go down to the corner, get yourself a drink from the shop down there, and just go on, get. So she does, and on her adventure out there, she runs into Kodi the bear, and Kodi needs her help. She then goes to her grandmother, they help free Kodi, and they form this beautiful friendship. It's so sweet. I love it. But then Katya has to move away, and she moves to, so she's in Alaska, I believe, for the summer. And then she has to go back home at the end of the summer to Seattle. So Kodi then has to go on this big adventure to go find his best friend Katya. And it's so cute. Again, the artwork is fantastic. I will be reading it again and again. I love it so much. It is so beautiful. Yeah. The next book kind of starts a theme that I had in September. I didn't intend for it to be the theme, but once I started with this book, I was like, why not? Let's roll with it. And that book is The Witches of New York. This book is by Amy McKay, and I didn't know much about this one. I just knew I wanted to read a book about witches, and wow. I gave this one 4 stars, and I would give you the synopsis, but there's so much that goes on in this book. Like, It's a lot. It kind of reminded me of when I was watching Game of Thrones for the first time, and I was just like, okay, wait, who's that? Wait, there's another person? Something's going on? Well, now what's all this? You know what I mean? It's so crazy. There's so much going on. Essentially, this is the story of three witches in like 1890s New York, and lots of things happen. There's ghosts, there's a doctor who's trying to talk to the dead, there's a pastor who is doing a witch hunt, and then that all heck breaks loose, and that gets really scary. It's a lot. But I wanted a witchy book, and this satisfied that so well. I would definitely maybe check the trigger warnings on this one too. This one does get a little heavy, and I was just like, eek, that's kind of yucky, because people are crazy, man. People are just, ugh. Yuck. So yeah, Witches of New York. I believe there's more in this series. I might pick them up this month. I don't know. We'll see where October goes, but 4 stars for this one. I really liked it. I look forward to reading more from Amy McKay. Yes, more witches. Let's continue on with the witches with the Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. So this is a romantic comedy type of book about witches. You have Vivian, and she's a witch, and she was dating Reese, who is also a witch, and he broke her heart. And she then is very sad and has a little too much to drink, so her and her cousin put a pretend hex on Reese. Well, turns out it wasn't such a pretend hex after all. 9 years later, Reese, who I think he lives over in like the UK, he comes back to this little town, and he needs to do some witchy things, and he runs back into Vivian, and then they kind of get all romantic again. You know what I mean? Because there's the hex that they're dealing with, there's ghosts in the town, there's like ley lines that are going wacky. It had just the right amount of spice for me, and I thought it was really cute. I did give this one a 3.5 stars. It was cute. I'm happy I read it. Next up, we have my favorite book of the month. Ugh. Top 3 books of the year that I have read so far, without a doubt, personally for me, and that is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. Okay, this is the story of Nina and Nestor, and they were childhood sweethearts, and then something happens and Nestor thinks that Nina dies. Well, he gets really freaked out and sad by this, and so he runs away. He comes back 9 years later. This is in 1846 during the Mexican-American War, and he finds out that Nina, in fact, is alive. This does take place in northern Mexico, which is now modern-day Texas, and they are dealing with not only literal vampires, but also the figurative vampires of the Mexican-American War. Now, I do want to just say this because I feel like a lot of people are rating this one much lower because they feel like this is going to be a horror novel. This is not a horror novel. This is a historical fiction romance that takes place during the Mexican-American War, and it does in fact have literal vampires in it, and they are very scary. Some of the reviews I saw, they were talking about how the vampires were just like an afterthought and not really much of a threat. I don't know what book they were reading, because the whole time I was reading this, I was captivated and I was terrified, and I knew that the vampires were out there and they were scary. They're not your typical Dracula vampire. They're much different, and I loved it. And then the figurative vampires, even more terrifying. Just absolutely heartbreakingly terrifying. And this book is so beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Nestor is my literary boyfriend. He is everything. I love him so much. Oh, I love this book. It like brings tears to my eyes how much I love this book. Ugh. I feel like not everyone feels the same way about this one. I love historical fiction. It's one of my favorite genres, and this one is just, it's everything. I also have The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas, and I can't wait to dive into that one, because if it's anything like this one, oh, I'm gonna love it too. The next book I read was The Witches by Roald Dahl. More witches. I decided to read this one because I wanted something a little bit more lighthearted. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Lighthearted, Roald Dahl. Yeah. So I remember watching this movie as a kid. Jim Henson did the Witches movie. I'm sure you've seen it, with Angelica Houston. And I just vividly remember like the transformation of the witches, obviously, but also the tale. You know what I'm talking about? And I was like, you know what? Jim Henson, we know he can get a little dark. He can get a little kooky. So I'm sure the book is a little bit more lighthearted. I've read some Roald Dahl in the past. That's the thing. I've read Roald Dahl in the past. What was I expecting? Holy cow, this book is dark. I thought I was going to read this one to my kiddo in the next couple of years, once, maybe first grade-ish. No, we're going to be waiting a while before the kiddo reads this one. I don't know how many times I'm going to say it. It's dark and spooky and kind of heavy. This is the story of a young boy. I don't think he has a name. Correct me down in the comments if I'm right or wrong. Correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong, but I don't think he has a name. Anywho's, his parents sadly have passed away, and so he is with his grandmother, and she is teaching him all about witches of the world. Well, they have to then go back to London, and they're now staying at this hotel, and at this hotel, the Grand High Witch is meeting with all the other witches of London, all about how to get rid of all the children of the world. And this young boy, unfortunately, kind of witnesses this conference of theirs, and it then turns into this big adventure of him and his grandmother having to stop these witches. I was really looking forward to then finishing this up with a happy ending, and I'm still waiting for that happy ending. Thanks, Roald Dahl. Yeah, I gave this one a 3.5 stars. I liked it. I will probably be reading this one again, but it did surprise me. I don't know what I was expecting, but yeah, that's the witches. Next up, we have Popcorn and Poltergeists by Nancy Warren. This is book number 9 in the Vampire Knitting Club series, and I loved it. 4 stars. I feel like I give cozy mysteries kind of more lenience on my ratings. So this is a 4-star book. And it's just a very simple, cozy mystery, but it did exactly what I wanted it to do. There was knitting, there was vampires, there was a mystery, and there was popcorn stitches and poltergeists. So, I mean, what is there to not like about this one? This series centers around Lucy. She is a young woman who has recently inherited her grandmother's wool shop, and living below this shop is a nest of vampires who run a knitting club. Well, Lucy and the vampires, I've talked about this a million times. You guys are probably sick of hearing about it. Lucy and the vampires then they solve mysteries together, and it's really cute. And this one was very literary focused, a lot of Mary Shelley and Emily Bronte in it, which I was like, yes. And again, poltergeists and popcorn stitches. Who doesn't love a popcorn stitch? So fun, right? But yeah, if you are a fiber artist, if you like working with yarn and you like a good cozy mystery, definitely check out these books. The audiobooks too are awesome. You get 3 of them for 1 credit on Audible, which I think is a really good value. So check out the Vampire Knitting Club series by Nancy Warren. Next up, I like to read a classic book every month, and some might consider The Witch is a classic book for sure, and I guess it technically is, but I wanted to throw another one in there. Around the spooky time, I get way into Ray Bradbury. This month I will be reading The Halloween Tree. It is a must. I have to do it. So I decided in September to read Something Wicked This Way Comes. I remember in the 80s, a movie. I think there was a movie in the 80s, right? Tell me I'm right. I think so. And I remember a tarantula for some reason, very vividly, a tarantula. That's all I remember. But anywho's, this is the story of Jim and Will, and they are 13-year-old boys. They're almost 14. They're really excited. And one October evening, I guess it's early in the morning. It's 3 in the morning. One October morning, a carnival rolls into town, and it is a pretty dark carnival. There are witches in this book too, so we're kind of continuing on that witch theme. And there's witches in the Popcorn and Poltergeist too. So anyway, a carnival rolls into town, and this book is I don't know, it's weird. This book is very weird. The carnival people are basically trying to get Jim and Will. There's a witch. There is an illustrated man with a bunch of tattoos. Oh, goodness gracious. And and all of that. I do want to say this book does have some language regarding circus performers that is not okay. This book was published in 1962. So Anyways, they need the help from Will's father, who was my favorite character. I was not expecting to love him so much. If it wasn't for Will's father, I don't think I would have liked this book as much as I did. I really felt for that character for some reason. This book deals with aging, being young and wanting to be older, being old and wanting to be younger, the theme of good versus evil and what is good, what is evil, all of that. And it's very deep. Now, Ray Bradbury has a very unique writing style. It gets very almost like lyrical. I don't know how to describe it. It's very interesting. His writing is not for everybody, so just be aware. It might be a little hard to get through at times because of the writing, but I personally love Ray Bradbury's writing, and I am so happy I picked this one up. I can't wait to read The Halloween Tree this month, and 3.75 for Something Wicked This Way comes. Next up, we have The Antiquity Affair by Jennifer Thorne and Lee Kelly. So this was also on my August TBR. We put a little break in the witches there to read this one because I wanted to get this one done. I did The Adventures of Amina, Al-Sirafi. I wanted to get another one right off of my August TBR since I really didn't read much in August. And I picked this one up and I liked it. 3.5 stars for The Antiquity Affair. If you like Indiana Jones, you will like this book. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my all-time favorite movie. You guys know this. I love adventure. I love historical fiction. And I love, archaeology things. I love it. Oh my gosh, I eat it up. And this is a book about two sisters in like 1907 Manhattan/Egypt. And they're the daughters of a famous archaeologist. Well, something happens. The sisters go on this big wild adventure to basically stop the bad guy from getting a supernaturally powered artifact. It's very simple. You know the plot. You got Egypt. You got a supernatural artifact. They got to stop the bad guys, archaeologists. But this one is different because instead of the man coming in to save the day, it's these two young women. I loved the conversation this one had about kind of getting rid of that, stereotype of he's gonna come save the day and all of that stuff. I thought this one was really fun. It was adventurous. I enjoyed it. The romance I thought was really sweet in there. And yeah, I do recommend it. And I'm glad I picked it up. Then the last book we have in September rounds out our witch theme. I don't know, we'll probably read more witches in October, but rounds out September's witch theme with the witch herself, Circe. This is by Madeline Miller. You guys know about this book. I finally got around to it. I loved it. 4.25 stars. It's not quite at the level of Song of Achilles for me. It's not. Oh, did I love Song of Achilles. This one though, beautiful. I love Madeline Miller's writing. It is absolutely gorgeous. I was rooting for Circe from the very beginning. Oh my gosh. I love her. I wanted her to be so happy. I just wanted her to be happy. Just be happy, Circe. I love the mythology, and let's be real, right? Greek mythology is very heavy. It can be very hard to digest. It's a lot, right? Madeline Miller's books make it so much easier to kind of grasp and wrap your head around, and you have all of those characters that we know from Greek mythology, but they're written in a way that is more modern and understandable, and I love it. Now you're gonna laugh at me, but while I was reading this, I was just like, wow, there's a lot of Odysseus in this book. Didn't expect there to be so much Odysseus. You're shaking your head, right? Das on it. Of course there's Odysseus in it. Why wouldn't Odysseus be in there? Forgive me. But yes, it is absolutely gorgeous. I loved it. I loved the ending. Oh, it's everything. It's absolutely beautiful. If you have not read any of Madeline Miller's work and you are interested in Greek mythology, definitely check it out. It is fantastic. I highly recommend this one. Beautiful. So glad I finally got to it. But those are all of the books that I read in September. Tell me, what books did you read in September? Did you have some favorites? Did you have some not favorites? Keep an eye out if you're into the crochet stuff. I have a lot of crochet videos coming. I have so much yarn and goodness and Halloween spooky crochet things that I want to talk about, but we'll get there. That's it for me. Thank you so much for being here. I think you are so wonderful. And did you know I think you're way funny? It's true. You're so funny. Keep it up. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I love you so much. You are fantastic. And I will see you all a little later. Bye.